Today it is Stephen Davids here. In this video I just want to show you lessons learned on the Makataan project that we had. It is not the recipe that I want to share with you, but the lessons that we learned and how we can improve. The first lesson was the correct way to cut that big Makataan. We halved it. I use an apple because I don't have another thing now. Of course, I cut it. I cut it first in half, split it in half then. And after I split it in half, of course this was bigger, I cut it in half again. And then further I cut it in another half. In other words, I quartered it. And then I use these individual quarters. I simply cut these quarter into bigger pieces, and that was in the way we cut the Makataan. And then only thereafter we got rid of the inner soft parts, and the inner soft parts we just cut out with a knife, any knife, and thereafter we peeled the rand of the Makataan. The way we peeled it, I used the ordinary peeler. It must be a strong enough peeler because these things you can use to cut the peel of the pumpkin. So then it went easy. We also used the knife to cut the peels of the Makataan. I did foresee that the pricking process will be a major issue if you use a fork. Therefore, I made this. I somehow call it the destroyer. This is basically screws, self-drilling screws that I put in a certain distance. It is 6 centimeters. It is 6 centimeters long. Just remember the turn must be also up to here, the very end, because if you turn it into this board, it must still stick. It can't be without this, what I think you call it, the wiring, the turning. Okay, this is deck board. It's about, the handle is about 30 centimeters long, and this is around say 10 centimeters long. This decking board, you first drill in the holes, because otherwise it will split. First drill in holes, and then you turn in these screws. You can see it close up. If it's with a handle, it is easier to prick. In fact, then you can put in more of these screws, while if you have it within your hand, it's more difficult you can't have such a lot of these screws in. The way you use this, I somehow call it a destroyer, you don't hit it in hard with all your might, because if it's like that, it's difficult to come out, and in fact someone done it. And so you can see you won't be able to work fast with a thing like this. The correct way I found out was you don't hit it in too hard. Hit it in with a medium force, and then you just twist. You see the whole hand. You just twist it fast. Just twist it fast. I'll show you again. Just hit it with a medium fork, and then you just twist it. Just twist it out. Then it comes, and it works quite well. So then the whole process is much easier. The cut, peel, and prick took around 2.5 hours for us 3 people. The next issue that I want to address is the way the Makataan. The weight is not so of very high importance as far as I'm concerned, because we didn't really use it so much. We rather use the size as a guideline for the weight, to determine the waters, the lime we need, the syrup, the sugars, and the other ingredients. We had no scale, and what I had to do then was to estimate it based on the known value. On the one hand, I had the sugar in a plastic bag. I weighed, this is 5 kilograms, and I picked up the empty parts of the cut Makataan. Okay, this is heavier, and the next dish was also heavier than that, so I knew it had to be heavier than 5, and I estimated it to be around 13-15 kilograms. I think a better estimation will be next time just maybe to add or remove pieces so that I know, okay, the Makataan at hand weighs more or less the 5 kilograms, and then can I make a better estimation. Also of importance is that you need to estimate it before the process starts. In fact, as a layperson, not as a professional, someone who every day makes a Makataan, you have to start immediately with your estimations, because you must buy the ingredients accordingly. So I will say a rough estimate is that maybe half of the weight of that Makataan, pick out the Makataan, estimate it. The half will be the rand, if not a little bit less. Coming to the ingredients, for the size of the Makataan, 3 packets sell it in 50 grams at the scheme. There wasn't other sizes, so I say 3 packets of 50 grams was good enough for the size we had. I used 9 kilograms of sugar that I threw in with the first batch, and then there were 2 big pieces of ginger. I will go and explain it further. 1 big piece I threw in at the first batch, and when that was finished, I threw in a second batch. I had more than the lemons indicated here, but in future I will take 1 to 1.5 lemons, because and I will throw it in at the very start, because otherwise if you have too many lemons in, the 2 lemons tasted a little bit too sharp to the lemon. Just to go quickly through the ingredients. You see, of course, it's very simple, just the 4 ingredients, the lime, the ginger, the lemon. Ginger, lemon is optional, but the sugar and the lime are mandatory. After pricking it, there was, of course, the lime soaking that it had to face, where the Makataan had to soak overnight. I just want to say one reputable recipe site from Food Lover said that you can soak it in 2 days in Makataan. So most of the people says that you must soak it for overnight, and that I done. But that 2-day scope gave me the confidence that if we started the Sunday afternoon with the pricking and leave it in there, it won't be soaked too much. There's not a thing like overnight you can, 12 hours, 13 hours will be too much. So overnight you can easily just to manage the process and to be finished early night. You can even start later the previous day, the afternoon. Another thing we will do is to check if it is pricked properly just before I put it in the lime, because I noticed only when we were busy boiling the pieces that some pieces were not pricked, and then it's a little bit too late to prick it. And if it's not pricked, it tastes very hard. It's a little bit hard. So then I also discovered to prick it properly is basically to soften it. So check that it is pricked, and that quality check you can do when you take the pieces and soak it overnight. I was also surprised to see that the lime does not dissolve in water. To stop a process and look, what am I doing wrong? Must it be dissolved in first hot water and a little bit, just like a packet soup? No, it does not dissolve in water, so do not be worried. And another thing is that the Makataan float a little bit on the water, so that you will have to change it halfway throughout the night. just to make sure that everything is properly. And when you change it overnight, just turn it around, turn the solution around so that it becomes white again. After the soaking in Makataan, then there's another process, and that is the cleaning of the Makataan, and it must soak then. It must soak more or less in after you took it out of the lime water. You clean it underneath the running tap that you got in. Not really a running tap, a running tap, and then while the water was running into the empty basket, because you need to save water. If you want to make water, and our country is prone to droughts, you will have to save water. And then you'll need to, after you clean it in water, just also soak it for 2 hours. I did not use the same water in which the Makataan soaked for 2 hours, because I was scared that maybe there's possible chemicals left in the water, although I can't see it. Because why did I soak it? I soaked the whole thing so that the Makataan can get rid of the chemicals. After the soaking of 2 hours, the another project was to water cook it. I didn't cook it 1 kilo or 2 kilo batches, because that would have taken too long. It's a trade-off and a balance between what is possible and what's reasonable. I put in everything in that can fit into the pot, and then I turned it halfway, because otherwise it would have taken too long. Just remember, and that is very important, I stick to that, insert the pieces one by one, so that the water does not go below the boiling point. And I cooked it for around 45 to 1 hour. It was, for me, cook it until sometime is a little bit difficult, especially if there are pieces at the bottom that you can't see. So time estimation is for me better than simply just testing it until you can put in the toothpick, as they say. I cooked it for 45 to 1 hour, and I did test it with the toothpick, and it did work well. And I noticed the pieces can cool off. And for the cooking process further, in also water and in the setup, we used a gas stove. The gas stove saves electricity, and I also had a nasty experience beforehand where something dropped on a glass top, and I was a little bit scared for the glass top. So I used the Kaidak, and given the price of electricity, at least you have control over the price of the energy. And the whole thing, water, boiled 2 batches, the water boiling, the syrup boiling, in that pot size, on that 7 kg kilogram, that was gas stove that was full at the very beginning. It lasted the whole day. Just be careful in terms of your safety. You must put the pot at a safe place. You must always make sure that the pot is balanced on that gas stove, because a gas plate is a little bit smaller than that big pot, so it can easily tilt and fall off. I was always conscious about that. Always conscious that when you take out from the Makataan pieces, you then will change, of course, the weight, the balance of the weight and the balance of the pot. So just be careful, always be conscious. Maybe people around you yourself, don't forget and don't walk back into the thing, because a terrible accident can happen. So if that thing stands somewhere, be careful for yourself, for kids, whatever. We done the batches and the water boiling in 2 batches. Put in the 1 batch and then put in the second batch. After the boiling in water, there comes a syrup boil phase. I did not use water in which I boiled it, because it was too hot, and you must have below the boiling point water to add the sugar and bring it then up to a boiling point. But next time, in order to save water, I will just let the water cool down a little bit below boiling point, and then throw in the sugar and slowly Stir the sugar until it dissolves, and then boil it for 10 minutes. I was also time conscious here, and I did put in as much of the Makataan in the syrup as I could, and then also I turn it around halfway, and the whole process I cooked more or less. This next time I'll cook it for 2.5 hours. I think 2.5 hours is more than okay. As I said, I made the things in 2 batches. The first batch, I didn't put all the sugar in, but because I'm diabetic. But I think I'll throw in this time all the sugar, 9 kilograms of sugar in the first batch, and that sugar is so the syrup was not too thick, but neither was it too thin, and it's a balance. But I also noticed the thicker syrup boiled better, and then I put in 1 big piece of the ginger for taste. I will not grate it, but just cut it in big pieces. The reason is that at the end I noticed that after around 3 weeks, 1 pot with a big piece of ginger, it started fermenting, and while the other pots didn't ferment. So the ginger then smelled like a ginger beer, which is not a good thing, that I do not want at this stage from. So put in a big piece of ginger that you can remove. I did not need to put it in cloth, and I didn't find it necessary. I just put in 1 lemon. In future I did put in 2, but at the end it tasted a little bit too much to lemon. The lemon is here to break the sweetness, but don't put in too much, as I said. And in future I'll just put in 1 big lemon or 1.2. I just want to cut in pieces and leave there. The second batch, I just added another big ginger, because I assumed that the first ginger was a little bit exhausted. I thought I can eat the ginger. It wasn't like that. It wasn't so nicely edible. But as far as the lemon is concerned, I won't put in another thing in. Before bottling it, I removed all the ginger. I soaked it overnight. The Makataan shrinked. I didn't know it. It was 3 big pots I used. At the end, everything fits into the 1 pot, and after the bottling, it kept well for 3 weeks. Maybe it will keep longer if you thicken it or if you intend to, but for my family purposes, it lasted in some homes finish, and in some other homes, my son that was a little bit sugar conscious, it lasted for 3 weeks, but it was still well. In conclusion, everything is a balancing act between effort and cost and then enjoyment, because it takes a lot of trouble. It is a lot of trouble, and it's a little bit expensive, but then it's something you enjoy. And we made it a nice team effort, played around, fooled around, worked everyone together. So by that we could bring down the trouble and the effort, and also we had that nice thing to prick it with, a destroyer, that I somehow call it, and all those small little things can help to make it worthwhile. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy your Makataan. Please tell us something more about your experience or any comment that you have. Please like and share this video, and please subscribe.